No, Don, not yet.
Okay.
I love my job. Okay. So, okay, Laughlin comes up. On this shot, I will welcome the audience. We will bring up Clifford Stone, and then we will say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. George Noory. Way too long, and it's not the beginning.
Carolyn, we got a guy right in our camera shot. Yeah, to your left. He's right in my camera shot.
Okay, I need to ask you something. Do you know how to cue that theme to the beginning? That was a yes or no.
Okay, we're rolling again.
Ladies and gentlemen, bear with us because we are live streaming tonight, so that's what the practice is all about. So Laughlin comes up. Okay, so at this shot, we welcome the audience. Everybody claps. We welcome Clifford Stone. And then I say, no. So cue the theme to the beginning, please. So can you make your mic hot and tell me when it's ready?
I said I'm ready 5 times now.
We're going live now.
I have to start it again.
Okay. Is this live? I don't know if this is live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Starworks USA Time for Truth UFO Symposium. Give yourselves a round of applause, please. All right, we have a treat for you guys today. Let's get rolling. First of all, there is no one better in the UFO field than this next gentleman. Please welcome to the stage retired Army Sergeant Clifford Stone. Big round of applause. Come on, guys. And now you all know our host and MC for this afternoon. He is a 3-time Emmy Award winner. He's your host of Coast to Coast AM. Please put your hands together for Mr. George Noory.
Thank you, sir.
Wow. And we're going to do this show without any commercials. Maybe a few phone calls. Folks, this is also the historic day of Veterans Day. And I would like all of you veterans, if you can, who have served, to stand along with this gentleman who served in the Army. A standing applause, please, for Clifford Stone and everybody who served in the military. Without you men and women, we would not be here today. Talking about subjects like this, we'd be muffled. As Tom was saying, we are streaming live all around the planet right now. I bet they're watching us in China and Russia. And President Trump is probably watching us wherever he is right now, out there in Asia. Clifford Stone, a remarkable man who spent 20 plus years in the military in a very special unit called NBC, and that's not the television network. Nuclear, biological, and chemical. But as you will find out, that was a front for something very special. Clifford, I look forward to this.
Thank you, sir.
A little different from the radio show, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it sure is.
We get to look at each other.
Scary thought, huh?
All depends on who's looking at who, right?
Actually, I was referring to you having to look at me.
There's nothing wrong with you, Mr. Stone.
Oh, I'm scared to death, sir.
Are you really?
Yes.
Well, there's only a couple hundred people in the audience and probably 5 million watching you on television right now. Nothing to worry about.
It could be 2 that I was talking to, and I'd be scared.
After what you've been through, which has been a remarkable career, when you first got into the military, did you expect to be investigating downcraft in ETs?
No, sir. When I first got in the military, I had to fight like heck to get in. I was medically rejected from military service. I wanted to go in and serve my country. I felt that that was one of the greatest things that a young man could do. I still feel that way. I went ahead, I got in, and my intentions was to serve God, my country, and be a credit to both my country and my family.
Initially, you did not want to get into the Army. You wanted to get into a different branch, didn't you?
I wanted to get in the Air Force. As a matter of fact, my initial 214 stipulated I had enlisted in the Air Force, which later they would use against me.
So how did they move you into the Army? How did that happen?
I went, took my oath, signed my DD Form 214, which is the enlistment contract. They went ahead, put me on a plane, flew me to Fort Gordon, Georgia. I went in there for basic training and Was Army all the way up until the time that I had a couple of experiences with UFOs, and all of a sudden they told me, you got a choice. Work with us, re-enlist for 3 more years, or be court-martialed.
Or court-martialed?
Yes, sir. I'd wasted all the taxpayers' money because I was supposed to be in the Air Force. And I was in the Army uniform, and I was serving in the Army. And how dare me go ahead and waste all the taxpayers' money.
How old were you at that time?
At that time, I was 19, sir.
19 years old at that time, folks. Just a young guy, almost a kid. A man, of course, in the military, but 19 years old. So when you got into this unit, and it was basically a front to hide what was really going on, what was your first experience to the craft?
My first experience as far as involving craft, and this is hard for me to tell, was we went for what was called an FTX, a field training exercise, there at Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. Sometime during the course of the night, close to midnight, myself and a couple of other people in my unit was directed to go ahead, pack up the deuce and a half, which we had the NBC equipment on and communications equipment on. And we were going to a location where there was a crash of a aircraft of some kind. So I went ahead, packed up all my stuff. We started to go. There was, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 vehicles that was in the convoy when we were going. I was driving my deuce and a half. And as we approached, we saw these floodlights shining down on something that looked like a hill-shaped object. Once we got there, I went ahead and was waiting for them to go ahead and bring landlines to attach up to my switchboard, the SP-22, when this person that later on I'd always call the colonel came in and said, son, I want you to take the AP-27, which is similar to a Geiger counter. I want you to walk towards the craft, and I want you to call back the readings you're getting as you get closer. So I went ahead, I got the AP-27, started to walk toward it, and I was calling them back. And I'm looking, I've never seen a craft like that. And
It looked like one of our planes,
no,
did it?
sir. It looked like the heel of a shoe, with the back of the heel into the ground at about a 45-degree angle. As I got closer into the crater, I could see the cockpit of the craft. Then I could see a kidney-like opening on the side of the craft, lying halfway in, halfway out. It's what we'd call in a typical gray. And I went ahead and I immediately stated, I need an officer up here. The guy that I've always called the colonel said, it's okay, son. Just tell us what you're seeing. I says, no, sir, you don't understand. I need an officer up here.
You were one of the first to see a body
Yes, sir.
in this craft.
the best of my
The other
knowledge.
military people at the time had not even been that close yet.
No, sir. And which is unusual because we were the B team. We arrived after a team had already set up the floodlights. How they didn't see anything when we were setting up the floodlights, I don't understand. But I got there and I know what I saw, and that's when I started to ask for an officer. And it was very hard to call back and try to explain what I was seeing there.
Clifford, how close did you get to the ET?
This is going to be a guess, but I would say I was probably within 20, 25 feet of the ET itself because I was standing on the berm that was built up by the crater when it impacted.
Did it look like it was dead?
I knew it was dead.
You did. Why? It's emotional for you, isn't it? How come?
I've been in combat. I've seen death. And our visitors, they're not cartoon characters to me. They are just like us. They have families, they have fears, they have likes, they have dislikes. And when you're doing interfacing with our visitors, then what's happening is anything and everything you feel, they feel. What they feel, you feel. When they feel fear, you feel fear. And in every case, I always had this anxiety, I had this fear when I was involved in one of these cases. And in the entire 22 and a half years I spent, there's only about 12 cases I was involved in. But each and every one was different. Each and every one had their personal elements of that fear.
Were the extraterrestrials over the course of your investigations different, or were they the same kind of being?
Oh, they were different. And they had a manual, I refer to it to a medical manual. I wasn't supposed to be privy to it. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I was shown it. And that's how come I became aware that there were approximately 50, but that the book stated there were 57 different species that was currently visiting the Earth. And the book was nothing more than a first aid book, how to take care of them until, I'm going to just come out and say it, until we can get aid from their people to do the proper medical procedures that they might need. And there was that correlation with their people and ours.
As you approached the being some 20 feet away for the first time, were you close enough to be able to describe what it looked like?
Oh, yes, sir. It was a typically gray. My impression was that it was about 3.5 foot tall. It was lying with its arms up like this, and it's up like this, and the head, the right side was down onto the body of the craft where it was trying to crawl out. The eyes were closed. The ears, and I'm not going to say they're pointed, but they were a little oblong, a little different than what ours was. And the mouth looked kind of distorted. And remember, they only have a slit for a mouth. But it looked like whatever happened, it was in pain.
So it was still kind of withering.
Yes, sir.
When you got there.
It hadn't been dead for all that long.
Did people come and take the craft away and this body?
When the guy that, like I said, I always called the colonel, he said, "Okay, son, come on back down." And I went on back down. He said, "Go on and get back in your deuce and a half. Stay there. We're going to connect up the field phones to your switchboard, and you'll be manning that switchboard." And of course, I had a cover over my deuce and a half, so I got back there. The only thing I had, it was in the winter, and it was cold. I had my field jacket on, and the only thing I had as far as heat back there in the deuce and a half, in the back of it, the only thing I had was like a Coleman lantern, military type, and that was providing me with the heat. But of course, I was numb. I was trying to figure out what just happened. What did I just see? And I'd already had experiences. I mean, when you're selected, where they're going to follow you throughout your life, you have one or two choices to make. You can either go ahead and say, I'm going to fight this. And I can remember asking my mom and dad, "Please take me to a doctor. The doctor will make the monsters go away." And until we met Captain Brown, who actually knew what was going on, I don't know how, then he followed me throughout my life until he actually was supposed to be killed in the crash of a T-33 out of Lockwood Air Force Base, and it made the Columbus paper. And once again, the name Captain Brown was used, but what he told my family, I have no idea. But now my family knew that he was going to be coming around, having contact with me. It was always about UFOs, and I learned a lot from him. But the whole situation is that either you make that choice, you're going to go ahead and cooperate and try to gain some understanding and knowledge from your cooperation, where the exchange is going to be mutual, or you fight and resist, at which time it's going to go ahead and it's going to destroy your whole life and it's going to drive you insane.
Well, you're not insane.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
And you were able to battle that. Now, what did your family say about some of these things as the years moved on, Clifford?
My family went ahead and didn't say too awful much to me. They knew that something strange was going on in my life. And I had family members that actually were interested in the paranormal. And I was the one that had the major concern, because I didn't go strictly with any religious beliefs or anything like that, but I believed in God. And I thought, what if this is the devil trying to take me over? And that was one of my greatest fears. And of course, the one that followed me throughout my life, when I call Corona, he went ahead and says, "You got to remember this. We're never going to tell you to do anything that's going to hurt anyone, or anything that would be wrong, or anything that would be against your moral character." And to date, I'm 68 years old. He lived up to that.
This is going to be important for you, Clifford, but I'm going to ask our live audience here for a moment a question. It is by no means a slight to you. Please understand that.
Oh, no problem at all, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard a story, and we're going to get into more with Clifford Stone. When he was 19 years old, witnessing a downed craft when he was with the Army and a dead extraterrestrial. You've seen the emotion with just telling me that one facet of his story. This is important for him. By a yay or nay, how many of you in this audience right now do not believe what you just heard? And I want you to be very, very honest with us. Just yell it out, yes or no?
Thank you.
Nay.
Thank you.
How many of you believe the story? Overwhelming. And everybody's entitled to their feelings,
Oh, yes, sir.
their decisions, and everything. And I can understand from the people who do not believe the story, I can understand that.
I can understand that too, sir.
It's a wild story. But other than writing a great book called UFOs Are Real,
Thank you, sir.
you haven't prospered off this.
No, sir.
You're not making a lot of money at this conference. We all love Paula Harris, but she's not paying you a lot of money for this. So why do you do this?
If I had my brothers, I would keep my mouth shut and live a normal life because it affects your family life. But you know, you can't think of yourself. You've got to go ahead and think of other people out there who have had experiences, because no one's a believer till they have an experience, and they can't help but believe. And they need to know they're not alone. They need to know they're not crazy. They need to know there are other people out there just like them that's had experiences. And maybe your experience hasn't been the same as theirs, their experiences haven't been the same as yours, but unless you come out and you are willing to tell what happened to you, then others will not say anything. Case in point, when I wrote this last book, I had one call, and that one guy that called had been with me on one of the recoveries. And he only wanted to call to let me know that he appreciated the fact that I wrote the book. The reason he wanted me to know that, unbeknownst to me, his family was right there, and we talked. And he finally convinced me that, yes, he had been with me on a crash. I'll tell you right where the crash was, in Georgia. And I heard this woman in the background when we went ahead, and he said, when I was with you, and the craft started to kind of rumble and tremble, you know. Do you know what side I was on? I'm thinking, okay, you know, I've never told that story. This guy may know what he's talking about. And I said, if you're who I think I am, sir, you're on my right side. He says, yes. And he said, do you remember what you said when I asked you what happens next? And I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to make it G. I'm not going to say what we would say in the military. But I said,
You can't say that.
I said,
We're going to go to a commercial. Oh, sorry, I lied.
I said, I haven't the foggiest idea. And when I started to say it, he said it with me, which was confirmation. He had to have been there. I heard a woman in the background go ahead, oh my God, it's true. Then I heard some others sighing. He had his grandchildren, his children, and his wife, who always told him not to talk about it because people think he was crazy. And you know what? I'm going to say it right now, folks. I don't care what people think about me. At one time it bothered me. But you know, there's other people out there hurting and suffering, and I don't have the right to keep quiet. I have a moral obligation to talk about what happened to me, no matter what other people think of me. And the reason I have that moral obligation is to help other people who have had other experiences to know that they are not alone, that there are many of us out there, literally tens of thousands of us that have had experience, and let them know that what happened to them wasn't a sign of craziness, it wasn't delusional, it was something that was a reality, and they need to feel good about the experience they had.
Good for you. How about that? That's an American for you. over the course of your career, has anybody in government tried to shut you up?
Oh, yes, sir. Back just before I got out of the service, they actually tried, they gave me a lawful order not to talk about it. Well, at that time, I already made it clear we were hurting people. And that was wrong. We did not have that right. So I started to talk out about it. By talking out about it, one guy right there in New Mexico, his involvement in what he had experiences with led to his death. And that bothered me. So I said, no, we're going to talk out. So I started writing to members of Congress at that time. I went ahead and was talking to the media. I was given a lawful order. I would not go ahead and correspond with any branches of the U.S. government, talk to the media, or anything else. I'd keep my mouth shut. I considered that an unlawful order and continued to do it, which time they went ahead and gave me a bad EER, relieved me of all my duties, and decided that I was not following lawful orders. They were going to court-martial me in accordance with Article 92 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And I said, you know, do what you must, because I'm going to do what I must. Ultimately, in the end, the three officers that was really trying to push this toward me, they were relieved of duty. Then they wanted me to go ahead and go overseas. I'd already put in my retirement papers because I was going to fight this. I wasn't leaving. The Pentagon ordered my retirement papers pulled. They pulled my retirement papers and sent me to Germany. When I got to Germany, I went ahead and felt good about that because I did not want to go ahead and just leave the Army because they wanted me to leave. I wanted it to be my choice.
You wanted your terms.
Yes, sir.
Did you, let me just ask because I'm curious, did you get your military retirement? I mean, you got your 20
Yes, sir.
years in. So they didn't take that away
They
from you?
didn't. As a matter of fact, during the time, the 18 months that I was fighting, the living hell I was going through with all the court-martial charges and things holding over me, when I left that unit, I was given one of the highest medals you can get for peacetime service, known as the Meritorious Service Medal.
That is a great award and a great honor.
Thank you, sir.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Cliff, we're going to get involved in some more cases.
Sure, sir.
David Jacobs, the great UFO researcher, has a different theory than most UFO researchers. And his theory is that their visitations here aren't friendly, very nefarious, that there's an evil purpose for why they're coming here. At any point in your entire career, do you think that's possible?
That they were evil? No, sir. The one thing I know for a fact, and most people of average intelligence and common sense realize, is that if you apply your technology to go ahead for evil purposes, for, so say the application of aggressive war, things of this sort, ultimately you're going to fall victim to your technology. And you as a civilization, it's going to crumble and cease to exist. Our visitors are using a technology that in many instances is 1 to 2 billion, that's with a B, years ahead of our technology. They would not have reached that unless they reached that plateau. And I'm not talking religion here. I'm talking about the spiritual essence of a sentient beings, which we're an sentient being ourselves. We're just misguided sometimes. You reach that spiritual level to where you want to go out and live peace and live in harmony with the entire universe. You want to be able to go out and do scientific exploration for the betterment of your own species, and if there are other species out there, to go ahead and try to have some type of relationship with them to where you can gain a better understanding of your position, your place in the universe.
In the movie Contact, the extraterrestrial was talking to Jodie Foster, who was playing a part named Ellie, and in essence was telling them that their quest to travel throughout the universe was to really search for that answer, who are we? Why are we here? Who is God? Even extraterrestrials were looking for that same answer that we're looking for. Do you think at any point now, even if they're billions of years ahead of us technologically and spiritually, have they got those answers? Have they been able to answer what is God? Why are we here? Or are they still looking for that?
I think they have those answers, sir. Like I've said before, and people are going to get mad at me when I say this, with me and some of the intelligence that I have had contact with, we had conversations that I will carry those conversations to the grave with me. With that being said, if you were to ask one of our visitors, does God exist? They would tell you that which you call God exists. We cannot tell you which religion is true and correct. But at the same time, man, and most people don't even realize this is the case, man is born with an instinct to look for God, to look for that creator. So yeah, we are in search of where did we come from and what is our position in the relationship of the universe. Just recently, the last couple of weeks, the Kaleidoscope in Europe, they went ahead, if I'm pronouncing it right, they went ahead and they determined, based on experiments that they were doing there, that the universe as we know it should not exist. How did it come into play? For man to exist today, from the time of the Big Bang to present, there were literally billions of little minute things that had to take place for man to exist today. We also know scientifically that man should not be here. Man should still be another 1.5 million years into the future before arriving at this place in our time in history. So how do we explain this? I don't know. Do they know? They probably do. Are they going to tell us? No, because that would then be interfering with our progression and our understanding. Ultimately, contact is going to take place where there won't be no question as to the reality that we're not alone in the universe. And when that happens, that will be a glorious day. Nothing to fear. But until that happens, that's got to be handled with the utmost careful planning and everything. If not, you're going to have people who don't believe anything's out there except us, who can accept, okay, there may be life out there, but with that life being out there, it can't possibly come here. To say there's life out there is one thing. To say there's life out there and it's visiting us, and it's been visiting us since the dawn of man, that's entirely different.
Or may have even seeded us and created us, as Zechariah Sitchin, the late Zechariah Sitchin, has in his work.
Well, there's been interaction with us. Did they create us? Personally, I don't believe they created us. The same creator that created us created them. And they have an understanding of that. And one of the things they're looking for is the diversity. And I'm going to say it because I'm a religious person. I believe in God, let me put it that way. Religion's one thing. Faith is an entirely different thing. I believe God went ahead and created the universe and other universes and other parallel dimensions, if you wish. The situation is that God loves multiverse. What is God? Who is God? I don't know how to explain that. Does God exist? In my personal opinion, yes, he does. Our visitors, do they believe he exists? Yes, they do. And someday we're going to realize that.
Thank you. These are my time cues. Actually, she's saying, Clifford's kind of cute. He's cuter than you, George. How many retrieval cases in your military career were you set on?
In my military career, it was approximately 12 cases that I was involved
Were
in.
they all crashes?
No. Some were actually landings. Sometimes we got there. The one thing that you have to understand, we were interested in their technology. We're still interested in their technology. But you had to be careful because just like us, if there's a crash or if there's mechanical problems and they have to sit down, and remember, just like us, they're very mortal. And, even if they're advanced technology, things happen. When that happens, just like us, they send out rescue teams to recover survivors in crashes and try to recover the people who are left alive that are involved in emergency landings, let's say. And every now and then, even though it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, a craft will land, we start to move in, they realize we're moving in, they'll take off, and one or two of them will be left behind. When they say that we go ahead and hold on to them, excuse me, don't take an American and hold on to them, because the whole situation is we're going to try to get that American back. If you take a group of Americans, then even if it requires military action, we're going to take those Americans back. So the whole situation is that people need to think that they too have plans on how to recover their own, and also with dead ones, that they have respect for their dead. And a lot of people don't like me to say this. I honestly believe, and I'm going to make it so it doesn't open up the great debate, I'm going to say it's my personal opinion. It's beyond that. But I'm going to say my personal opinion that we return the dead aliens back to the visit to the planet, their own people, from which they came during the Roswell crash. And I think that took place at White Sands.
Maybe that created a little better
I'm sorry?
feelings between us and the ETs by giving them back.
Oh yeah, and the other situation is, the only reason they made themselves known to us was to keep us from destroying ourselves by trying to destroy them. A lot of people aren't aware of it, but they think, okay, well, we get a radar lock on, then we can track. No, we can track them with radar. But if you get a radar lock on and you try to fire, say, a surface-to-air or air-to-air missile...
Which I think we've tried.
We have tried. We tried it in Vietnam. But the whole situation is that missile is going to lock on to the closest radar possible, follow it to that target, and then you have people who die of friendly fire. Good example, June 17th, 1968. They picked up approximately 23 enemy helicopters over the DMC, complete with lights, which it's stupidity if you're in that type of situation. You have the lights on your helicopters. But the lights were there, so they went ahead and they used small arms fire first. It wasn't hitting anything. They requested that the Navy go ahead and send up some F-4 Phantoms to try to intercept these enemy helicopters. They closed in on them. The F-4s fired on the lights, the enemy helicopters, and I actually thought they splashed 2 of the enemy helicopters. The end result was, next day, no debris is found. However, we hit the Hobart, which was a Australian cruiser. We wounded six sailors on it, but we also just killed 2 officers that was on the Hobart. On June 30th, 1968, MACV, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, held a conference. That conference was entitled Conference on Unidentified Flying Objects. The question was, what do we do about the UFO situation in Vietnam? We were trying...
It was enormous, I'm told.
It absolutely was. I mean, we were reporting, and it was actually, they kept record. That conference required them to keep records. At times, we had as many as 3,500 reports in 1 month of UFOs being there, of sightings that took place. Well, the whole situation is, the question was, what do we do? And it was determined that, and the term unidentified or enemy helicopters stayed in place. It was, let us go ahead, let us monitor the enemy helicopters, but do not engage them unless they show hostile intent. The end result, according to General Brown, 1973, we ignored them and we had no more problems. Did they go away? No, they didn't. They still were watching the events that were going on in Vietnam.
And they probably still are watching us.
Oh, they still are watching us.
Do we, Cliff, interact with extraterrestrials? I mean, there's always been this undertone that governments were in collusion with the ETs. trading back technology and everything else. Are we doing that?
Oh, the whole situation is we try to go ahead, acquire their technology, and back engineer it. Now, to prove my point as far as programs go, you have Project Horizon, which was an Army project which would have put a 12-man permanent station on the moon by June of 1963. The technology involved...
One way, though, for them. They weren't coming back,
no,
were
we
they?
would be able to go there and come back. And that was technology we didn't have at that time. It was technology that we were back engineering based on recoveries that we have gotten from crash sites, or we acquired from technical difficulties on craft that had to land. The other thing is Project Hazel. Project Hazel was a project which we started doing research on a Mach 3 craft that could go ahead and cruise at 190,000 feet. And I'll remind you that the U-2 only cruised at about 80,000 feet. The SR-71 had a top cruising speed of approximately 100,000 feet. The Project Hazel came into being in 1948. The fastest aircraft we had at that time was maybe 800, and if you went to complete afterburners, then maybe we could get up to 1,200, and that was the F-94. People are going to go ahead and say the X-15, which, yeah, but that's a different category, and that was still very earthly technology. But with this type of craft, we were getting ready to try to do something, and the crafts look very exotic. Today, we're flying prototypes based on the prototypes that we were working on back in 1948. We've done that also in 59.
What kind of propulsion system did they have? Because I think they were able to travel through space and time and bend it, basically. They could go from point A to point B by folding it over. How did they travel?
They used reversible wormholes, sir. The situation is that they start from using antimatter drive. We call it proton drive. But using antimatter drive, they can say, okay, and I know this to be true, from a planet that's approximately 100 light years from planet Earth, to come from there to here, it takes about an hour and 40 minutes in real time.
An hour and 40 minutes?
Yes, sir.
I need to use that on my next trip to the east or west coast.
You might overshoot your point or destination.
That's true. I'll end up on Mars by mistake.
And what a lot of people don't know, we always refer to antimatter. And I was, as a matter of fact, Corona told me, the little visitor that's been with me throughout my life, do you understand antimatter? Well, yeah, to a degree. Then it's okay. Then if you're asked, then antimatter is the propulsion that we use, and we use reversible wormholes. And I thought, okay. Later on, I was to discover something else, which we just recently proved that existed. It's called negative matter. It's not the same as...
Negative matter?
Negative matter, not the same as antimatter. But it's thousands of times more potent if you're using it.
How does that work?
I haven't a clue. And I mean, that's why we just found out about it.
Why, Cliff, at this point, and then we're going to take some of the questions from the audience for you. We've got Tom Danheiser there and Cheryl Jones, former CNN reporter back there, too. Say hi to Cheryl, by the way, folks. Great anchor person. With everything that's happening in the media today these days, Cheryl, we need you back on the air. My gosh. But why at this point, Clifford, are they still suppressing the information from us? Why not just come public like you have and say, folks, this has been going on since the beginning of time. We're being visited. You have nothing to worry about. They're not eating us like they were in the movie, the Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man. Don't worry about that. Why don't they tell us?
Well, for two reasons, actually. One, we really don't know the reaction of the vast majority of the people. For example, some people said that they felt my story is a bunch of hooey, and I can respect that. And there's a lot of people out there that think that. I mean, truly believe that, simply because God made man on this earth. God did not make other beings out there. Heaven forbid. I have a family member who feels that way, too. But the situation is, how are those people going to react if they come out and talk about this? The other thing is, There are people who believe, yeah, people are seeing things, but it's the devil's work. So it's a question of how the world population is going to react to that truth, and I'm going to call it that truth. The other thing is there's a technology involved. The nation that controls that technology has a strategic advantage in any future armed conflict, and it's got to be the right conflict. Like right now, we have certain weapon systems that we have to make a decision whether we're going to use them or not. In the event any nation uses nuclear weapons against us, do we have the means of really neutralizing those weapons? Yeah, we do. Do we want the rest of the world to know that we have it? Because if we let them know we have it, the big question that comes up next is, how did we acquire that? Good example, the National Reconnaissance Organization. It started back in the early 50s, actually going back to 48, 49 time frame. And they created cameras, very special, unique cameras, far advanced. Many that are in use right now that was created back in the late 50s are far superior to anything we have right now. But we decided we were going to go to the moon, and NASA requested funding to develop a camera that could take very precision photographs of the area of the moon to make a determination where we wanted to land. The National Reconnaissance Organization said, okay, we'll go along with that, but what we need is, let them have some of our antiquated R&D, research and development, and let them think, okay, we tried this, but we didn't really get it right. You may be able to do better. So they gave them that technology, several $1,000s added into it so they could do their own R&D. They came up with a camera that was brilliant. We took the photographs of the moon. We triangulated there on Tranquility Bay where we wanted to land. So we did that. Unbeknownst to the world at that time, a camera existed that was 100 times better than that camera that we used to do that. By the way, that same camera that I'm talking about took photographs of UFOs, actual craft that existed that was in near Earth orbit that we never knew was there. Those photographs have yet to be released, and the NRO knows that they took those photographs. Now, I'm telling you all this, and people step back, oh, he can make anything up like that. Excuse me, the documents exist. And the whole situation is people say documents aren't important, documents are everything. Because you know what? They tell that history that has been kept from us throughout all this time. It's made people go ahead and lose their families because they had this interaction with this phenomena that we call UFOs and our visitors that have taken their own lives, that have destroyed people, had people go ahead and had their families think they were crazy, they were mad. Well, guess what? There is a written record of a lot of this that's there. And when you look at it, you see the technology involved, you got one question. Where did that technology come from?
Exactly.
And did we back engineer a whole craft? No, sir, we didn't. Your technology has to be on par with the technology that you acquire. However, if you have any technology at all, you can develop some of that technology that makes it a very exotic and advanced technology just based on what you currently have. So we call it foreign exploitation technology.
It's very foreign.
Oh,
It's
yes,
way
sir.
out there. Are you glad this has all happened to you? If you had a choice, would you do it again?
I love my country. And if you know me, you know I put people ahead of me. I could feel and sense the need of helping other people. So I'd probably let it happen to me. I wish to God it never did. I want one thing out of this life that I've never had.
What is that?
I want to live a normal life like everybody else. But, if I keep my mouth shut, I probably could. But I don't have that right. once again, I have to say it, I have a moral obligation to throw myself on my own sword, knowing that many people are going to say, liar, liar, you're mentally ill, you're this, you're that. But I owe it to the people who are out there who have no place to turn to say, you know what happened to you, it's okay. And I want people to know that. And I don't want them to just take my word on it. That's why I'm fighting for the documentation. And I want people to read. And I want people to educate themselves on this. I don't want people to let anyone, to include myself, live in their mind rent-free. I want people to know the facts based on the facts. And the only way they can do that is by looking at the documents that have been released, and then demand the documents that are yet to be released. We had 2 programs, and I always had to go ahead, bite my tongue, and say project or operation. Moondust and blue fly, those were the pro words that was used to recover only 2 things: objects of unknown origin that survived re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, or objects of non-U.S. origin that survived entry into the U.S. or into the atmosphere. And we want these so we can go ahead and gather any intelligence data that we might need from the technology that might be within those, say, of Soviet origin or something of the sort. Well, the whole situation, I always had to say, well, they could possibly of Soviet origin. They had nothing to do with that. Moondust and blue fly dealt specifically with the recovery of objects that did not originate on planet Earth. They were pro words to SCI programs, sensitive compartmented information programs, associated with special access programs. Within special access programs, but a lot of people don't understand, you have categories. First of all, you have to be on a by name listing to have the information made available to you in special access programs. Those by name listings normally do not exceed 100 people. Within the NRO itself, under Kehoe, initially less than 50 people was on that by name listing. The president himself, who initiated it, was left, the president of the United States, Eisenhower, was left off that.
They're kept in the dark most of the time, aren't they?
Oh, yes. But people say, well, the president, let's vote for this president so he can release. No.
Not going to happen that way.
It's not going. There's actually laws in place, and even an executive order that was actually brought into play by Eisenhower himself that's irrevocable, that the president can't do away with, that makes it impossible for any one president by himself to make that decision. The National Security Council, or a group of people on it, has to make the decision, Mr. President, that information you can go ahead and release. It can't be, I'm the president, I can do darn well what I want. It don't work that way.
Do we have physical contact with extraterrestrials where we're communicating directly with them?
Yes, sir, we do, and it's necessary.
And approximately where may they be coming from? What star system?
My little visitor is from 100 light years away. Many of them can come from planets as far away as millions of light years.
Are they star clusters that we would know of?
Well, there's plenty that we do know of.
Zeta Reticuli and places like that?
Zeta Reticulum actually has a star system. Barney and Betty Hill was a true case.
Right. I believe that.
And the whole situation is, I'm in good company because those 2 people were called crazy too. And those 2 people were scared to death about what happened to them.
Yeah, they were.
The incident happened in 1961. They finally seek medical help in 65. The psychologists put them under hypnosis. They went back in progression, and both of them told the same story under hypnosis. And the interesting thing I like about the Barney and Betty Hill case, once again, they were a typical type 2 Greys that were involved.
Right.
And the situation is, Betty wanted proof that this actually happened. One of the entities went ahead who was friendly towards them and saying, we're not going to harm you, we're not going to do anything bad. And she said, I want that book. That book, I can prove I was here. She went ahead, after pointing to the book, the ET says, it's okay. When you leave, we'll let you take that book. The one that was in charge came up and says, no, she cannot take anything. We cannot let them take anything that would indicate they were ever here. So when they left, they had no indication. All they knew, they had missing time. The other thing is, from 65 to 69, there was no way to identify what Betty was calling the star chart. Mm-hmm. They could not identify that at all. They tried. 1969, Tracy star map came out, or star guide came out. A lady by the name of Marjorie Fish went ahead and made almost an exact duplicate of what Betty went ahead and described. Now, some of the debunkers, any tens of thousands could go that away. Make me a liar. Show me one time any of the debunkers came up with something like that. They can't do it because it never happened.
It's a funny story, too, is that you brought up the psychiatrist who interviewed them. Because when I was 21 years old in Detroit as a radio reporter, I interviewed him, Dr. Benjamin Simon out of Boston. And I'm still scurrying around the houses that I've had because that tape is somewhere.
Yes, sir.
And I asked him specifically if Barney and Betty Hill, based on his interpretation as a psychiatrist, if they were telling the truth or not, or if they were lying. In his exact words, George, whatever they saw, and I don't know what they saw, but whatever they think they saw,
yes, sir,
they're telling the truth. And he said, I hypnotized them separately. And their stories matched to a T.
Yes, sir.
He said, take that to the bank. Again, I don't know what happened to them. I'm the psychiatrist. But whatever happened to them, they believe it to be true. I found that to be incredible.
Oh, yes, sir. And I'll tell you something else that's incredible. You remember Dr. Menzel? He's actually the granddaddy of the debunkers. I want you people to know that Dr. Menzel did everything he could to discredit anyone that thought they saw a UFO. One thing that a lot of people don't know, he was a consultant on Project Twinkle, the study of the green fireball phenomena in the southwestern part of the United States, which included New Mexico, and they were doing this out of Kirtland Air Force Base. The OSI was actually the primary office that had the responsibility for the investigation. In 1948, with him being a consultant, he went to El Paso for some reason. He was on his way back to to White Sands, actually, but he was billeted there at Holloman Air Force Base. As he came back, and if you've ever been out there, you know, as you're coming back from El Paso, Texas, off to your right, there's that mountain range. He saw 3 objects about the size of the moon, the full moon, up there that he couldn't identify. And he made it clear he knew they were real. He knew that there was something there. But he was different. He was a scientist. He wasn't like us morons that were just everyday people going about the planet like ants. Whatever he saw was real. He didn't report it to Blue Book. And remember, Project Twinkle was never ever supposed to become part of Blue Book. Thank God that they got the final report of Project Twinkle, did not know where to send it to, and sent it to Project Blue Book. Thank God that the OSI, the 17th District, did not destroy those records. Because in those records, you have the report of Menzel reporting UFOs, the sighting he had, being real, tangible objects, not hallucinatory, with no plausible explanation. And of course, he had an ego. He, if there was an answer, would know the answer because he was a scientist.
So he was a skeptic to hide something.
Oh, yeah, and that even after he saw the UFOs and couldn't identify it, he remained skeptical. Or did he?
Or did he? Cliff, we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Yes, sir.
Tom and Cheryl, you've got some stuff for us?
We do. We have a lot of questions from our audiences. On 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, folks? Okay. So, Clifford, someone from the audience would like to know and would like you to discuss the pain of keeping the secrecy from your family, and when did you finally decide to let them know?
My wife knew. I met my wife in Vietnam. She was there when a couple times they came and got me. My kids, Dad was supposed to be home and doing things with them. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes at 3 in the morning, I'd get a tap on the door. The code word was Tabasco. And the general sends his greetings. I had to grab what we called a BA-50 bag that had all my gear packed. Clothing, I exchanged this for 3 days, and I had to leave. I didn't know where I was going. Even peacetime, okay? You didn't know if you were going to ever make it back. We were dealing with the technology. We were the kids. We were playing with firearms as children because we did not fully understand the technology. When I'd get back, it was understood that my kids wasn't to ask where Daddy had been. They would just go ahead and accept it that Daddy had to go TDY, temporary duty. The problem that they had friends too. And everyone was saying, oh, well, your dad's just volunteering too much, because clerks don't go that much to TDY. Clerks don't go that much to the field. The whole situation is that there were 5 years straight I did not take 1 day leave. Not because I didn't want to, because I had things I had to do. And, you know, the whole situation is, even if there wasn't UFO activities that I was involved with where we were doing recoveries, there were times that I'd have to talk about events and even go ahead and share my viewpoints on what UFOs were and how we stand as far as the relationship that we have with the potential of other life out there. And I finally found out why this was going on long before I even got involved. There was a document, still classified, but I'll tell you the name of it. It was called the Extraterrestrial Report. It was done up by the CIA at the time. Beadle Smith was the director, I think. And it was talking about the ongoing interrelationships that we have to have and how we had to be very careful. And their major concern that by accident, we could get involved in a thermonuclear war by mistaking UFOs of being...
And that's almost happened before, too.
I'm sorry?
These accidental launches.
Oh, yes,
almost
sir. Yes, sir. There are several times that we became... 1950 is a good example. We were 15 minutes from a nuclear exchange, and we were about to launch our missiles. Had it not been for them telling them to stand down, and the situation was, oh, we found the problem. What was causing all these radar sightings, that right there was a little gear that was messing up. And that was the best they could do at the time. Too bad they couldn't think about, oh, well, that's a temperature inversion. But they said the little gear, and of course everyone, wait a minute. This is happening to many different locations at the time. Next day they came out and said, well, we got to be careful because the Russians might have tried to do that because at that time we were already involved in the Korean War. But anyhow, it died down. They downplayed it. The media didn't ask questions. It went away, and they didn't have to say no more about it.
Next one, Tom.
Were you given any personal support by the Army, by the stress you were under? This is Cheryl Jones asking.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Were
That's
you given
Cheryl
any
right over there.
Were you given any personal support by the Army for the stress that you were under?
Did they
No,
pay your
ma'am.
medical bills, I guess she's asking.
No, ma'am. I came down with skin rash. You want to see me out there? I got it on my, the pictures on my phone. I went ahead and I was in great pain, and they would not do anything for me. They're like, oh, that looks bad. All that looks bad. And I mean, it hurt. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sleep. And I went to the VA, and I had them take a look at it. Well, there's nothing we can do. Finally, one of the doctors told me, I don't know what's wrong with you. I want you to go to the emergency room. Of course, the emergency room they wanted me to go to was the VA hospital 200 miles away. My wife, on a Friday, tried to take me there. And I was in so much pain, she turned around and came back, and we wound up going to Lovelace Hospital there in Roswell, New Mexico. They went ahead, looked at me, and checked and found everything. Says, well, the good news is the infection, the viral infection, hasn't attacked any internal organs yet. Had that happened, I'd have died. But the doctor says, look, all I can do is to tell you, when we release you, you take this medicine. It was some type of I can't remember the name of the medicine, but they told me to take the medication, but to see a doctor as quickly as possible after I got out of there. I went ahead and I bothered the people that followed me on Facebook, and I had the video and I posted it on Facebook. What a lot of people may not know, several thousand people went ahead and sent that, or got that, saw it. They called their congressman. They called the VA headquarters in Washington. They called the White House. That was on a Friday. That following Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from the VA hospital out of Albuquerque. They were telling me, they referred to me, hey, big guy, we did not know any of this was going on. And I said, okay. Says, but we're setting you up to see a dermatologist. And I was getting ready to say, you know, I'm in too much pain to go there. And they said, no, you don't understand. We're going to have you see a doctor there in Roswell. And they set me up to see a dermatologist there. He started to treat me, and it started to get better.
What did he say it was?
Actually, it's some type of skin disorder that's associated with exposure to Agent Orange. The VA will not and refuses to this day to even recognize that I ever had any exposure to Agent Orange. And Agent Orange was used extensively throughout Vietnam. And I didn't go ahead and use my hindsight to powder a chair behind a desk. I was in the field. And the situation is, I was at places known as Fantiette, Zion, Tainan, Cu Chi, Pleiku, all of those places. And, you know, they used that defoilant, Agent Orange, throughout there. We were in one location right at the base of Dewey Baudin, the Black Virgin Mountain, where they dropped Agent Orange, and we were right there, and it came down and hit us.
Lucky that stuff didn't kill you, Cliff.
It killed a lot of people.
At any point, did you think this rash might have been associated with the downed crafts that you visited, or some kind of radiation poisoning?
I really didn't know. And, you know, a lot of people suggested maybe some of the things that I have was associated with that.
You still have this?
Oh, I still got it on the back of my legs.
You do?
But it's getting better. I mean,
After all these years, you still have it?
Oh, this was only about 2 years ago.
It cropped up, you mean?
Yes.
But the exposure was years ago.
Oh, well, you know, if you have exposure to Agent Orange, and even if you don't have anything, you know what? Tell your children, because it's hereditary. It can be passed on to your children. And the one thing that you see me here, I got both my eyes. When the event that occurred at Dewey Baudin, where we went into a cave, there's more to the story, but actually, when the firefight took place in there, my left eye was injured. Officially on my medical record, it says that there was this bug that sprayed this spray back into my eye that cut the corona of the eye. I know of no insect, and I've been looking, that can do that. But when what happened there started to happen, it was like you were inside of a light bulb. It was like you were in a glass of milk, brightly lit. You could hold your hand that close to your face, and you could not see your hand. But immediately, I remember of going ahead, having pain right in here, going down, and I thought that was the end of it, you know. I woke up. When I woke up, I'm outside. I'm there with the guys that I went in with, And the guy always called the colonel. I said, how'd you guys get me out of there? He said, we didn't get you out. Question is, how did you get out? Couple seconds I wasn't there, then all of a sudden I was there. No one knows how I got there. To this day, I don't know how I got there.
Tommy?
Can you please talk about the ET craft and if you think there is any correlation between the craft itself and the degree of the ET's intelligence?
Did it seem like there was some kind of intelligence behind it? Any kind of controls or anything?
Yeah, if I understand the question, you mean is the construction of the craft a reflection of the intelligence of our ETs?
Correct, or anything in the craft or what it was made of?
Absolutely, absolutely. The whole situation is you went in there and you realized that there were control panels that you couldn't understand how they could be control panels. By that I mean they looked like a flat surface, but the flat surface, they had to know where to touch. You couldn't tell. I mean, there's no lights there telling you, okay, this is the start button, this right here is the speed, it's nothing like that. You had built right in to the consoles or even into the walls, you had screens, but not screens like we know of screens. And the situation is, the entities on board those craft knew how to use this. If there was a mechanical problem with the material, they knew how to fix it. And a lot of the times, we'd be sitting back scratching our heads, not, wondering, okay, how are they fixing it? The first thing we had to understand was, what the heck was it? So, yeah, there were many indications that showed that it was a vastly superior technology behind our intelligence behind the technology that created the craft. And once again, I have to state that in 1948 with Project Hazel, the craft that we were trying to develop at that time, that was technology that we acquired. That wasn't technology that we had. Some of the technology that was used in the National Reconnaissance Organization, that right there was acquired technology. It wasn't technology that we had. We went ahead and we exploited that technology to the extent that we could based on our level of the understanding of the technology involved. Good example, you take a brand new car all the way back to, say, 1776. They have a technical capability in 1776. They're not going to be able to back engineer that 2018 car. They're going to be able to back engineer some parts of it, but not the whole car. They're going to understand that the headlights, okay, those headlights have various types of gases in a vacuum that causes it to light up, but they're not going to be able to fully understand how that headlight works. The internal combustion engine, once again, they're going to understand, okay, yeah, there's something you put in this engine that makes it go ahead and move, and these pistons go up and down, and that causes that little crank to turn, that causes the wheels to move. But they're not going to be able to back engineer that. One of the things is that fluid that goes into the vehicle that makes the engine work, we hadn't learned how to process gasoline yet. And that would be a couple years off. Till we had that technology on how to process the gasoline, we couldn't make gasoline.
Cliff, the Roswell crash, they saw near the controls some kind of impressions for like 3 fingers, that they would put 3 fingers in and be able to control the craft like that. Did any of these that you witnessed have anything like that?
Nothing that I witnessed was anything like that, but at the same time, I'd be very careful to advise people that what my experiences are based on the experiences that I had. There were other people who had experiences that may totally be 180 degrees different than from what I had. No two people had the same experience, and if you've ever been in combat, I'll tell you right now, you can have 2 people involved in the same battle, okay? And within that battle, they could be side by side, observing the same thing. At the end of the battle, you're going to get two diametrically different stories. One person may remember everything about it. The other one is just going to have bits and pieces. And actually, even with abductions, that's the way it works too.
Cheryl, you have a question for us?
Yes, thank you. Clifford, many people believe the government knows that UFOs and ETs are real. What do you view personally as the most important proof of that?
I think the most important proof, once again, is the documents. And why do I state that? Just recently, the CIA released documentation that shows that major events took place in 1952. The primary major events that took place was the overflights of Washington, D.C. on the night of the 19th and 20th of July and the 26th and 27th of July. Those events went ahead and caused great interest in what was going on with UFOs, period, for a number of years now. But specifically in 52, over 1,500 sightings were reported, of which 150 remained unknowns. But that started the IAC, the Intelligence Advisory Committee, to start questioning about UFOs being real and being a threat. And what do we really need to do? That little unit in Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, consisting of maybe 5 people, wasn't hacking it. So they wanted to do something. Well, the decision was made that now was the time to go and brief the National Security Council and have the National Security Council issue an intelligence directive. During the course of the conversation, the CIA wanted to quiet what was going on. They did not want there to be a major investigation by all the intelligence community of UFOs. So they fought hard to try to keep that. There's only one way to stop it from happening. And history would repeat itself back in 66. At that time, they decided to have a group of scientists to talk about UFOs and try to determine what was going on. It was known as the Robinson Panel. They met between June the 14th and June 17th. Even though they had military personnel, high-ranking military personnel, go to them and tell them, look, some UFOs are interplanetary. We just can't buy that. We have no physical evidence. They were denied the physical evidence. The FBI, being a member of the IAC, the Intelligence Advisory Committee, one of the agents that was involved with that committee did a memo for J. Edgar Hoover. It was October 26, 1952, I think, the date of the memo, telling J. Edgar Hoover that many people in the Pentagon, many high-ranking officials, even though the official word was that there was nothing to UFOs, many high-ranking officials believed that UFOs existed and they were of extraterrestrial origin. J. Edgar Hoover was very upset with the CIA and accused them of holding information back. And how do we know this? Well, November and December of 2016, the CIA very quietly released documentation dealing with what I'm talking to you about right now. Then in January of 2017, they released more information. CRESS reviewed them to decide that they could go ahead and make portable records, PDF files if you wish. They became part of the general records of the CIA, which means they are among more than 17 million documents that have been declassified and not actually put into any specific files, like the 2 files that the CIA has on UFOs. Prior to the release of those documents, it was very difficult to read the minutes of the meeting of June 14th, or of January 14th and January 17th, known as the Robinson Panel. Now we have crystal clear documents, and boy, do they show a lot of things we didn't know until they were released.
Are some of them blacked out, Cliff?
Actually, these are very good documents, not mostly blacked out. Names are blacked out because, see, we can't have you going and asking the people who really knew, well, tell us about it. Now, the reason for that is because of Salbacher. He was what they called a dollar a year man. He didn't work with the UFO program, but he worked with people who were involved with recoveries, even the Roswell crash. And of course, when he was asked, what do you think about him? He came back, oh, I know people who went ahead and worked with recovery. They said some of the aliens that they recovered, some of the alien bodies were very similar to very similar to insect life, like here on this planet Earth.
Praying mantis types, right?
Similar to that. And also, he made mention of the metallic suits they had on. So the whole situation is, he didn't feel he was breaking any laws. He felt that, no one told him he couldn't talk. And actually, they think that if you're going to talk, if you've ever been exposed to this and you talk about it, you're a darn fool. Because you know what? You pay a price. You want to talk? Be prepared to pay a price. That's why a lot of people haven't come
Let's
out
take
to
a
talk.
couple more, Tom, then we'll wrap up.
Clifford, what key message do you have for us from your dealings with the ETs, and what would you say to the children of today who are our future about the ET intelligence?
We have nothing to fear from UFOs. We need to learn more. And once we learn more, it may go ahead and make us understandable how close we are and how much we have in common with, the various groups of people, the Russians, the U.S., the Chinese, the commonalities that we have. We are not different races, different people. We're one race, the human race. And the situation, we have nothing to fear from UFOs. The day that UFOs are exposed as being a reality, the day we can accept that, the day that we can go ahead and have interactions with them on individual basis like you and I, it's going to be a wonderful day. It's going to open a whole new world to all of us. Not for the bad, but for the betterment of all humanity. And it will lead to a much, much, much brighter future. It will lead to a better tomorrow.
What an exciting time that would be, Cliff.
Yes, sir,
Exciting.
I believe so.
Cheryl?
Clifford, how did the Army know that you were capable to work in crash retrieval? How do you think they figured that out?
I have no idea, ma'am. I wish I knew.
So, somebody knew something about you.
Yes, sir. I think it goes back to my childhood. I think that the military wanted me to go into the Air Force. I wanted to go in the Air Force. My brother is in the Air Force. But I was medically rejected. That happened at Fort Hays, Columbus, Ohio. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to go in the military. When I went back home after I graduated from Taze Valley High School, I went back home to Portsmouth, Ohio. Within a week or so, I got a notification from my draft board saying, greetings and salutations from your friends and neighbors. We want you to come and be reevaluated. I went. I passed my written test with flying colors, but I still had that medical problem. We had a doctor, this guy was a colonel too, that was visiting from Walter Reed Hospital there at the AFI station there at Ashland, Kentucky, that I went for my reevaluation. Then he went, would you like to really get in? Are you serious? I said, yes, I would really like to get in. He says, okay, I'll get you in, but you have 179 days to decide whether you want to get out. I said, if I get in, I'll stay. I'm not going to get out. And I went ahead and I stayed. They started to groom me. I thought it was just normal. I thought they treated all GIs badly when they first go in. But they made a special effort on my part. So I wound up staying in, and when they gave me the choice after many things had happened to me, if I wanted to become part of the program, and re-enlist for 3 years. And I said, I'd like to think about it because, my mama didn't raise no fools. I didn't want to have my life changed with all that was going on. So I went ahead and I said, well, let me think about it. He says, okay, we'll give you till Monday. Oh, by the way, if you choose not to do this, you got to know that the event that led up to this, I was detained and underwent what we call intensified interrogation. They said, if you don't do this, and we're going to have to court-martial you. I said, what? We're going to have to court-martial you.
So you didn't have much of a choice,
No,
did
sir. Well, supposedly I enlisted in the Air Force, what I wanted to enlist into to begin with.
How many members were in this unit, this retrieval type
Well,
unit?
the NBC team consisted of anywhere between 20 to 30 people. And normally you'd have a team that arrived within 2 hours of an event, followed by a B team that would arrive within 4 hours of the event to back up the A team. How many people were privy to the fact that this was a UFO event? That is much fewer. Give you an example. When I got out of the military at that time only had 7 other what we called interfacers. That led to the military trying to block me from getting out of the military. They tried to block my retirement. But fortunately, they didn't call my bluff. I made it clear I'd go and talk and show where I had my retirement orders. They revoked them, and they were holding me to determine whether I was supposed to be getting retired or not. And I pointed out that, us clerks are a dime a dozen, so you better be prepared. And I'm going to tell them you're holding me because I am needed to investigate UFOs. And I actually talked to any survivors. And they went ahead, and I remember to this day what I told them. They went ahead and said, well, we're going to have to see how we're going to handle this. I said, fine. If you don't like it, sue me. Well, I haven't gotten sued yet. They went ahead and let me out, but I have had times when they came to talk to me. And I have had times where they have actually came back and tried to tell me, you know what, your life would be a whole lot easier if you'd just stop talking. I agree with that, and this may be my last appearance here. Anyone who thinks it's about money, please come to visit me at my home. Forgive
And
me.
bring $10 with you, please.
Door's always open. I've never known a stranger to visit me. And the whole situation is, I've even had people who were debunkers, people who were non-believers. I even had Phil Klass visit me.
The skeptic of all skeptics.
Actually, I had the dubious honor of keeping Phil Klass up till 3 o'clock in the morning when he took great pride in the fact that no one keeps him up past midnight talking about UFOs.
Not even me. Cliff, these retrieval sites were scattered where? All over the United States?
All over the United States, and also in Vietnam one, and also in Europe I was involved in 2.
I want you to look at, as we wrap this up, look at the audience, look at all these people, all of them here to see you. What last words do you have for them if you never see them again? What message do you want them to take?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, you can choose to believe or disbelieve what I've said. I know what I'm talking about to be the truth. And I'm doing it not for me. I'm not doing it for... I'm scared to death being up here. I'm telling you that right now. I mean, it bothers me because the whole situation is, I'm going to catch flack from being here. But that don't bother me. What it makes it all worthwhile, what makes me feel good, is that it is my prayer to God that I have helped people who have had similar experiences and who didn't know how to turn, that they heard me talk, so they will be able to accept what happened to them, and they can say, you know what, I had an experience, a very unique experience. Now I want to share it. Whether they share it or not, that's up to them. But you know what? The more we start talking about the experiences we've had, the more people are going to have to start listening and saying, wait a minute, what if these people are telling the truth? You don't have to believe me, but I lived what I've told you I've lived. They are my experiences, and I will share them for the world, not for my sake, but for the sake of others who had similar experiences and didn't know what to do about them. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Clifford Stone.
I'm going to
Sir.
have Don come and take you down.
Okay, sir.
There's a bold American.
Thank you.